5 teenagers with special powers are trapped in a far-off place. They're watched over by a strict doctor. They have to get better at using their powers and face the scary stuff from before. One girl wakes up when her house starts to shake a lot. Her dad takes her and they rush outside. Big booms happen all around and stuff catches fire and flies through the air. They run into the woods. Her dad puts her behind a tree to keep her safe and then runs back to help everyone else. Danny tries stopping him, but he leaves. Soon after, his dead body is thrown in front of her. Scared, Danny runs away but is chased by a scary creature. She falls down a hill and hits her head on a rock. Later, she wakes up in a room, sees a girl in a ceiling vent who then vanishes. Danny finds herself handcuffed to a bed. She moves the bed to the window, spots a chapel outside. Then she pushes her bed to the door, trying hard to open the locked door. Danny hears a woman's voice over a speaker saying she's coming to her. Then, Dr. Reyes shows up, unlocks the door, and takes off Danny's restraints. Dr. Reyes tells Danny she's the only one who made it through a tornado that hit their Native American reservation. Danny doesn't believe it and says a monster was chasing her, but Dr. Reyes thinks it's just because Danny is really stressed. Dr. Reyes gives Danny a black bear pendant found after the disaster. Danny starts crying while a security camera watches and keeps track of her heart rate and stuff. In a cozy room, Dr. Reyes tells Danny she's a mutant, which is why she wasn't hurt in the reservation disaster. She says that usually mutant powers show up when you're a teenager. Dr. Reyes wants to help Danny understand her powers better. She also tells Danny that there are other young mutants like her, so she doesn't have to feel lonely. While taking Danny to her room, Dr. Reyes mentions that they are in an old hospital now, used to help young mutants. A doctor sadly tells Danny she's the only one left from her home, but makes sure she knows she's safe now. The day after, Dr. Reyes wants to chat with 4 young people, Sam, Ileana, Roberto, and Ronnie, about when they first noticed their special abilities. They don't really want to talk. But when it's Ronnie's turn, Danny comes in and sits down. Ronnie talks about asking a reverend for help to get rid of her mutation through prayer, but it went bad, and she got hurt when she changed. Dr. Reyes was not happy with how Roberto and Ileana were acting. She wants everyone to follow the rules. She told Ileana to take Danny for a tour around the hospital. Danny kept asking Ileana a lot of questions, but Ileana didn't really want to answer. Instead, she talked to her dragon puppet, Lockheed, pretending it was funny. Dr. Reyes allowed them to open the front doors, so they went to the courtyard. That's when Danny saw the front gate open. Ileana made Danny think they could run away, but as Danny tried, a wolf ran past her, and she ran into something invisible that stopped her. Danny finds out the hard way that they're trapped in the hospital when she bumps into an invisible wall. She's super mad, especially when Ileana starts making fun of her and then poofs away like magic. While this is happening, a wolf watches Danny get really upset. Danny feels super bad about surviving when others didn't, so she climbs up a tall clock tower, thinking about jumping. But then Ronnie comes along. She convinces Danny that jumping is not the way out and promises her that things will get brighter. Danny decides to give Ronnie's idea a chance and takes her hand, and they both safely end up back inside the tower. Ronnie helps Danny out by telling Dr. Reyes they were somewhere else. Once the doctor goes away, they see Sam tying a big rope to himself. He then starts to fly around, but he's tied to a big rock. Ronnie thinks maybe Sam is just trying to hurt himself. Back inside, Ronnie tells Danny more about Sam. He left school to work in mines with his dad. She also talks about Roberto, who got sent there by his rich family. When Danny makes a joke about Roberto being crazy, Rana says it's actually Ileana who is really crazy. One night, Ronnie brings Danny to her room, telling her that Dr. Reyes really wants to help them. Danny thanks Ronnie for her kindness. At the same time, the place where they stay keeps watching them through cameras. Sam and Roberto are just talking in the laundry room when one of the cameras shows that Danny, who is asleep, is somehow making the energy around her go crazy. The lights flicker, but the boys don't think much of it, and Roberto leaves. Then, Sam hears a strange banging noise coming from a washing machine and decides to check it out. Out of nowhere, Sam ends up in a strange underground tunnel filled with miners. He sees his dad at the far end, his face all messed up and bleeding. His dad looks at him and asks Sam what he's done. Then suddenly, a hand pops out on a washing machine door. This scares Sam so much that he flies back against the opposite wall, super scared. At the same time, Danny spots a camera hidden in her room. Dr. Reyes is watching her and sees the energy levels going up on some monitor. The next morning, while they're in the shower room, Danny tries to ask Ronnie about this W-shaped scar thing on her shoulder. Ronnie looks really bothered and doesn't want to talk about it. Sam is really upset and starts hitting himself while looking in the mirror in the men's shower. Later, in the entertainment room, Ileana picks a fight with Danny because she doesn't know what Danny's special powers are. When Danny hits Ileana on the face, Ileana gets ready to fight back with a blue, flaming sword, and her arm turns into armor. But Dr. Reyes comes in fast and stops the fight with a wall of energy, then makes both girls go to separate small rooms. While in her room, Danny hears Ileana speaking quietly to Lockheed, who is in the room next to hers. Ileana recalls a scary childhood memory when a very thin man with a smiling mask followed her. That same night, Danny sees a nightmare about a beast with red eyes trying to eat her up. When Dr. Reyes comes to check, she finds Danny all confused and with blood on her. The hospital's computers couldn't figure out what Danny's special powers are, and they think they need to take some of her blood to learn more. The next morning, while taking blood from Danny, Dr. Reyes talks about how new mutants often struggle to control their powers. The doctor believes that their powers make them a risk to both themselves and others. That's why he thinks they need to be kept away from everyone else. Dr. Reyes is happy to see Danny becoming friends with Rane. She thinks the hospital's program will help them manage their powers. Rane, while trying to find peace in the chapel's confessional, gets scared away by a ghostly voice cursing at her. Later, Danny goes to see Rane, but then Sam asks them to hang out with him, Ileana and Roberto, when Dr. Reyes is sleeping. A group of teenagers hang out in an attic where they think they can escape the doctor's watchful eyes. This attic is full of old stuff from before the place turned into a home for mutants. Ileana decides it's time for a truth-telling game and hooks Roberto up to a lie detector. Roberto gets shy and doesn't want to talk about his past relationships, joking that he's too hot to handle. He suggests Sam should try it instead. When Rane asks, Sam shares a touching story about getting a piece of coal from his dad before he passed away. But then Ileana changes the subject and asks Danny about the bear pendant she wears. Danny shares a story about how her dad made a pendant. It's based on a tale where every person has a demon bear inside that grows with their fear. The pendant serves as a reminder to keep fear small. Ileana, showing off a bit, then tries the machine as Danny wonders why she's in the hospital. Ileana says she's taken down 18 men using her sword and Lockheed. Ronnie checks through the machine and finds Ileana's telling the truth. Meanwhile, Dr. Reyes is secretly watching them from the attic. The next day, Dr. Reyes talks to the teens about following rules. She says it's important for moving forward in her program and going to a better place. Sam gets really upset when Dr. Reyes talks about his past mistake. He's mad because she doesn't seem to care about his bad dreams and storms out. That night, the teens have some fun after Ileana makes Dr. Reyes sleepy by messing with her tea. They start guessing about Dr. Reyes' boss, and Roberto thinks it might be Charles Xavier, who leads the X-Men. The X-Men are heroes with special powers, and they work to keep people safe from bad guys who are like them but choose to do harm. One day, Ronnie and Danny sneak out of the hospital through a vent. They find a quiet spot in a graveyard to relax and watch the rain. Back in the hospital, after talking about a sad time when Sam accidentally hurt his dad and others because he couldn't control his powers, Roberto hears something and goes to check it out. He ends up at the pool where Ileana is, and they start to flirt a little. Roberto earlier didn't want to share why he was in the hospital, even when Sam opened up. Danny thinks Ronnie is amazing, and they end up kissing because Ronnie's eyes turn a cool shade of amber. At the same time, Roberto and Ileana are making out by the pool, but Roberto has to stop because he starts feeling way too hot. He tells Ileana about a sad time when his powers hurt his girlfriend badly. Ileana tells him she's not worried because she can handle it, and then she disappears under the water. The next thing you see is Ileana, fully clothed, drawing something on her room walls. Then, out of nowhere, a creepy burned arm touches Roberto's back. He turns around and gets the shock of his life. He's face to face with Mariella, his girlfriend, but she looks like she's been through a fire. Roberto is really scared and hides in a corner when he sees Mariella walking towards him, all on fire. Ronnie feels that something is wrong with Roberto, so she rushes in with Danny. At the same time, Dr. Reyes wakes up, notices the chaos on the security camera, and runs to the pool area with Sam. When they all get there, they find Roberto looking like he's on fire, glowing like the sun. Dr. Reyes quickly grabs a cleaning tool and pushes him into the pool to put out the fire. Surprisingly, Roberto is okay after that. Then Ileana shows up, not knowing what just happened. Roberto is so upset that he tries to leave the hospital, blaming Ileana for trying to hurt him. Dr. Reyes tells everyone that the girl is in her room, making Roberto think that Dr. Reyes has locked them in with bad creatures. Ileana gets mad at Dr. Reyes, but she still puts the girl alone in a room and locks down the whole place. The next day, Dr. Reyes makes Danny use a machine to remember things from before she came to the hospital. Danny remembers trying to escape from something scary called the demon bear. But when she looks at Dr. Reyes, she starts seeing scary images of other kids with special powers being treated badly in a different place. Ileana and Ronnie are going through a tough time, seeing scary things that remind them of bad memories. Ileana sees a creepy smiling face painted outside where she's staying, and Ronnie runs into someone she once hurt, which freaks her out, and she ends up turning into a wolf. When she tries to run away, Dr. Reyes and the other kids try to find her because they hear loud wolf cries. But Ronnie can't escape completely and changes back to herself. But now she has a burn mark on her neck that looks like a W. Ileana stops the chaos, saying Danny causes the scary stuff and takes her to a spooky place. Danny scares Ileana with a smiley mask from her bad dreams, making Ileana run back to the hospital. Dr. Reyes gives Ileana something to calm down, and Ileana warns her that Danny can mess with their minds and might hurt them. Later, Danny gives back a puppet Lockheed to Ileana. When Danny asks, Ileana shares that the scary fire world, called Limbo, comes from her and Lockheed's imagination. They found a place to hide from the Smiling Men, scary creatures who enjoyed scaring her. That night, Dr. Reyes got a message saying Danny was dangerous and needed to be stopped after they got some more DNA from her. Danny went to Ronnie, who was still kind and said her fear was because of the priest, not Danny. Danny shared her scary vision during a test with Dr. Reyes, guessing it might show where they'd go after leaving the hospital. Right after, Dr. Reyes called for Danny, but she told Ronna she'd figure out a way to use her powers to escape. Dr. Reyes is about to take Danny to a secret room. At the same time, Ronnie, Ileana, and Sam hear music coming from Ileana's room. The door looks weird because it's turned black. Ronnie runs to get the doctor while Ileana and Sam decide to check out the room. They end up seeing the Smiling Man, a creepy creature that scares them away. While all this is happening, Dr. Reyes is getting ready to give Danny a scary injection. But Ronnie, using her super senses, figures out where Danny is. Meanwhile, Sam and Ileana are fighting off more Smiling Men that can actually touch them. Sam saved Ileana from a monster using a fire extinguisher. They found a secret room where Dr. Reyes was talking to Danny, who was out cold. She said Danny was a super strong mutant, but too wild to control. Suddenly, Ronnie dropped from the air vent, attacked Dr. Reyes, and left her all scratched up. Dr. Reyes fought back with a scalpel and ran away, leaving her brooch behind. Ronnie managed to save Danny just when it mattered most. After all that, Dr. Reyes left Sam and Ileana alone, running from the Smiling Man. Sam tries his best to get Ileana to fight when more and more Smiling Men appear out of nowhere. Suddenly, Ileana disappears by teleporting, leaving Sam with no other option but to fight the monsters on his own. Soon after, Sam meets up with Roberto, who's trying to break into a room with doors covered in a force field. They decide to team up to look for the girls, but then they run into more Smiling Men. Just when things are looking bad, Ileana comes back and fights off all the monsters with her sword, saving Sam and Roberto. After the fight, they all meet up in the doctor's office. Here, Ileana finds a file that says she has the potential to be a killer, and it's all linked to something called the Essex Corporation. Danny figures out that Essex is behind the place she saw in her vision, where young mutants are trained to become killers, not heroes like the X-Men. The group of teens decides they need to get rid of Dr. Reyes to break down the force fields and get out of the hospital. Ronnie takes charge and uses her sense of smell to find Dr. Reyes, who is hurt, in a room. When they find her, Dr. Reyes tries to keep the teens away by surrounding them with force fields. She wants to calm them down, but thinks she has to take down Danny specifically. Some teens were trapped and trying to escape. Then the doctor tells them that Danny can make people see their worst nightmares until it's too much for them. When Dr. Reyes tries to hurt Danny, she makes a huge demon bear appear. The bear breaks in and attacks Dr. Reyes. After that, the protective barriers around them disappear. The group helps Danny, who is knocked out, to get away from the demon bear. Ronnie figures out the bear is chasing them because it's Danny's biggest fear. Ileana decides she'll fight the demon bear, while the others get Danny to a safe place. So she creates a magic portal to get her sword, armor, and her mini dragon, Lockheed. Right outside the hospital, Ileana fights this huge bear, hitting it with her sword, and Lockheed breathes fire at it. Meanwhile, Ronnie and Roberto rush Danny to the chapel for safety, and Sam runs off to back up Ileana. Ronnie tries to hide with Danny in a confessional booth, but the demon bear just tears the top off it. Then Sam comes crashing through a window, hitting the bear so hard in the face that one of its big teeth flies out, almost hitting Roberto. Ronnie is trying to wake up Danny, who can hear her in a dream. She sees a wolf running and follows it. Meanwhile, Ileana is fighting the demon bear, using her powers to jump in and out of limbo for stronger attacks, but she gets thrown out of the chapel. Sam encourages Roberto, and he turns into his mutant form to join the fight. Danny hides in a dream tree, scared to wake up and face the demon bear. One day, in a chapel, something really wild happened. A bear attacked Roberto and slammed him into the floor. Meanwhile, Ronnie was trying her best to fight it off, scratching at its face. Sam was busy too. He saved Danny from beneath the big, scary bear. During all this chaos, Danny had a dream where she saw her dad. He told her to be brave and face her fears. So she got up, told the bear to stop right there, and somehow it listened. Danny managed to calm the bear down, and with her pendant, she made it disappear for good. The next day, Danny was super thankful to her friends for their help. They all started looking through what was left of Dr. Reyes' office, wondering what to do next. Ronnie is really thankful to Danny for saving them. Just then, Sam throws his coal into the sky and sees there's no more force field. Ileana thinks they should all leave, so they walk away from the hospital together.